Jane, a beautiful young woman, is the epitome of grace and elegance. She comes from a wealthy family that has given her everything she could possibly need, except for love. Raised in a sheltered world, she has always longed for a deep, meaningful connection. Dreaming of finding her perfect match, she believes in the magic of true love, much like the fairy tale she grew up with. Her life, however, is controlled by her family's expectations. They want her to marry someone of high social standing, a man who can match their wealth and status. Greg, on the other hand, is the complete opposite of Jane. He is a carefree photographer with a passion for capturing life's fleeting moments through his camera lens. Greg doesn't believe in love and sees it as nothing more than a distraction from his work and personal freedom. His life revolves around his photography career, and he enjoys the simplicity and freedom that come with it. His friends know him as the fun-loving guy who never takes things too seriously, especially when it comes to relationships. One day, their worlds unexpectedly collide. Jane's family hires Greg to be her official photographer for a series of events. Her parents believe that portraying Jane in the best possible light will help attract a suitable partner, someone who can meet their expectations. Jane, unaware of her family's subtle matchmaking efforts, meets Greg for the first time during a formal event. The moment their eyes meet, there is tension, not the romantic kind, but an instant clash of personalities. Greg sees Jane as spoiled, out of touch, and overly idealistic. He can't understand how someone could be so obsessed with finding true love when, to him, it's just a fantasy. Jane, on the other hand, finds Greg's carefree attitude frustrating. His cynicism toward love and his dismissive approach irritate her, and she wishes her family had chosen someone more refined to work with her. Despite their mutual dislike, circumstances force them to spend more time together. As Greg begins photographing Jane, he can't help but notice how beautiful and poised she is, even if she embodies everything he dislikes about love-struck women. Jane, though annoyed by Greg's teasing nature, begins to see that behind his bravado, there's something deeper in him, something she can't quite figure out yet. As days pass, Jane and Greg continue to work together for the events. Their interactions are filled with playful banter, but beneath the surface, a strange tension starts building. Greg can't help but notice how Jane's vulnerability slips through her polished exterior, and Jane finds herself drawn to Greg's wit, even though she would never admit it out loud. One day, during a photo shoot in a picturesque location, the two are alone for the first time, away from the prying eyes of Jane's family. It's here that Jane lets her guard down. She tells Greg about the pressure she feels from her family, the constant need to meet their expectations, and how lonely it can be despite having everything she could ever want. For the first time, Greg sees the real Jane, someone who craves love not because it's a fairy tale, but because she's been deprived of it. Greg listens, uncharacteristically silent. Something about Jane's honesty touches him, but he brushes the feeling away. Love, he tells himself, is still not for him. However, despite his efforts to remain distant, he starts to feel a growing sense of admiration for her strength and vulnerability. Jane, on the other hand, is confused. How could she be feeling something for someone like Greg, a man who doesn't even believe in love? Yet, she finds herself looking forward to their banter, their moments together, and she can't help but notice the small, kind gestures Greg makes when no one is watching. She begins to see that there's more to him than just the sarcastic, free-spirited photographer she first met. As the days go by, Jane and Greg's relationship slowly shifts from mere work acquaintances to something deeper, though neither of them dares to call it love just yet. By now, it's clear to both Jane and Greg that something is happening between them. Though neither admits it aloud, they've started developing feelings for each other. Their moments together are no longer just filled with teasing. There's a warmth, an unspoken connection that keeps growing stronger. Jane's heart flutters in Greg's presence. Every time their hands brush or their eyes meet during a photo shoot, she feels her breath catch. But she's conflicted. She knows Greg doesn't believe in love. He's made that clear from the beginning. And she can't help but wonder if she's setting herself up for heartache by falling for someone who might never feel the same way. Greg, too, is struggling with his emotions. He's never cared about relationships before, but Jane is different. She's real in a way that he never expected. As much as he tries to ignore it, he can't stop thinking about her. The way she laughs, the quiet moments when she opens up about her dreams and fears. It all lingers in his mind long after their meetings end. But Greg is scared. He's never let anyone get this close before, and the idea of loving Jane, of possibly losing his freedom, terrifies him. Things come to a head one evening when Jane and Greg attend a lavish event together. Dressed in her finest gown, Jane is the picture of elegance, and Greg can't take his eyes off her. As they share a dance beneath the glittering chandeliers, their closeness becomes unbearable. Jane's heart races, and Greg feels his walls crumbling. But just as the moment intensifies, Greg pulls away. "Why are you doing this to yourself?" Greg asks, his voice strained. "You deserve someone who believes in the kind of love you want." Jane is taken aback by his sudden coldness. "And what if that someone is you?" she asks, her voice trembling. Greg doesn't answer, and Jane's heart breaks a little more. She thought they were getting closer, that Greg was starting to feel the same way she did. But now, it seems like he's pushing her away, and she doesn't know if she can take the pain of unrequited love. The next few days are tense between Jane and Greg. They still have to work together, but the ease and comfort they once shared is gone. Jane tries to keep her emotions in check, but she can't hide the hurt she feels. Greg, on the other hand, is distant and aloof, trying to convince himself that he's doing the right thing by staying away from Jane. During another photo shoot, Jane's family introduces her to Lucas, a wealthy and charming man who they believe is the perfect match for her. Lucas is everything her family wants: handsome, successful, and ready to settle down. But to Jane, he's nothing more than a convenient choice. She doesn't feel the spark with Lucas that she feels with Greg, but she's tired of waiting for Greg to come around. Maybe it's time to let go of her fantasies and settle for something practical. Greg watches from the sidelines, jealousy burning inside him. He tells himself that Jane deserves someone like Lucas, someone who can give her the stability and the kind of love she wants. But it hurts to see her with another man. For the first time, Greg realizes just how much he cares about Jane, but it feels too late. Jane, sensing Greg's distance, becomes frustrated. She confronts him after the event, demanding to know why he's acting so cold toward her. "I thought we were getting close," Jane says, her voice filled with emotion. "But now you're pushing me away." "Why, Greg? Why can't you just admit what you're feeling?" Greg's heart races, but he holds back. "Because I'm not the right guy for you, Jane," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "You deserve someone better. Someone who believes in love, who can give you what you want." Jane's eyes fill with tears. She can't believe what she's hearing. She thought Greg felt the same way she did, but now it seems like she's been wrong all along. Heartbroken, she walks away, leaving Greg standing alone, feeling more lost than ever. In the days that follow, both Jane and Greg are left to grapple with their emotions. Jane throws herself into her work, trying to forget about Greg, but nothing seems to fill the void in her heart. She's hurt, confused, and wondering if she'll ever find the kind of love she's always dreamed of. Greg, on the other hand, is haunted by the memory of Jane's tearful eyes. He tries to convince himself that he did the right thing by letting her go, but deep down, he knows he's made a mistake. He misses her, the way she smiles, the way she opens up to him, the way she makes him feel like he's capable of more than he's ever allowed himself to believe. It takes a conversation with a close friend for Greg to finally realize the truth. His friend, noticing how miserable Greg has become, confronts him about his feelings for Jane. "You're in love with her, aren't you?" his friend asks bluntly. Greg hesitates, but eventually nods. "I am," he admits, the weight of the words hitting him. "But I'm scared. What if I'm not enough for her?" Greg's confession to his friend leaves him reeling. For the first time in his life, he's forced to confront his deepest fear, that he might not be enough for Jane. He's always prided himself on his independence and his cynicism toward love. But now, standing at the crossroads of his feelings for Jane, he realizes that his detachment has only been a defense mechanism. He's afraid of love, afraid of losing control, but most of all, he's afraid of being vulnerable. Meanwhile, Jane is trying to move on. She agrees to go on a date with Lucas, not because she has feelings for him, but because she's tired of waiting for Greg to come around. Her family encourages her, and Lucas is charming, attentive, and everything she's supposed to want in a partner. But despite Lucas's best efforts to win her over, Jane feels nothing but emptiness. Her heart belongs to Greg, whether she likes it or not. During the date, Lucas senses Jane's distance and confronts her. "You're not here with me," he says gently. "Your mind is somewhere else, no, with someone else." Jane tries to deny it, but tears well up in her eyes. "You're right," she whispers, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I can't force myself to feel something I don't." Lucas nods, understanding. "It's Greg, isn't it?" he asks. "You love him." Jane's heart breaks a little as she nods. "I do," she admits, feeling the weight of her emotions crashing down on her. "But he doesn't feel the same way." Lucas smiles sadly. "You deserve someone who's all in, Jane. If Greg is the one, you have to fight for him. Don't settle for anything less." Jane is taken aback by Lucas's words. For so long, she's been waiting for Greg to make a move, but maybe Lucas is right. Maybe it's time she stops waiting and starts fighting for what she truly wants. The following day, Jane makes a bold decision. She decides to confront Greg once and for all, to lay her heart bare and see if there's any chance he might feel the same way. She can't live with the what-ifs anymore. She can't move on until she knows, one way or another, whether Greg loves her. Jane tracks Greg down to the studio where he's working, her heart pounding in her chest. She's nervous, but determined. She has to know the truth, even if it means risking her heart again. When Greg sees her walk in, his breath catches. He wasn't expecting her, and the sight of her takes him by surprise. For a moment, they just stand there, staring at each other, the tension between them thick. "I need to talk to you," Jane says, her voice firm but trembling slightly. "I can't keep pretending that I don't feel anything for you, Greg. I've tried, but I can't. I love you." Greg's heart races, his mind reeling. He's wanted to hear those words for so long, but fear still holds him back. "Jane," he starts, but she cuts him off. "Don't," she says, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Don't tell me you're not enough for me, or that I deserve someone better. I'm tired of hearing excuses. I know what I want, and it's you. I don't care if you think you're not good enough. I think you are." Greg feels his resolve crumbling. He spent so long convincing himself that love isn't real, that he's not capable of it. But now, standing in front of Jane, he knows he can't deny it any longer. He loves her deeply, desperately, and he's been a fool for pushing her away. "I'm scared," Greg admits, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I'm scared that I'll mess this up, that I'll hurt you. I've never felt like this before, Jane. I don't know how to do this." Jane steps closer, her gaze softening. "You don't have to be perfect, Greg. Love isn't about being perfect. It's about being there, being real. I don't need grand gestures or fairy tale endings. I just need you." Greg stares at her, his heart swelling with emotion. For the first time in his life, he lets go of his fear. He reaches out, pulling Jane into his arms, holding her close. "I love you," he whispers into her hair, his voice breaking. "I've loved you for a long time. I was just too scared to admit it." Jane's heart soars at his words. She pulls back just enough to look into his eyes, her own filled with tears of joy. "Then don't be scared anymore," she says softly. "We can figure it out together." Now that Jane and Greg have confessed their feelings, they begin the delicate process of rebuilding their relationship. It's not an easy journey. Both of them have to overcome their own fears and insecurities, but they're determined to make it work. For the first time, Greg opens up about his past, sharing the experiences that made him cynical about love. Jane listens, her heart aching for him, but she's patient and understanding. Greg, in turn, learns to trust in Jane's love for him. He stops doubting his worth and starts believing that he's capable of loving and being loved. Their relationship becomes stronger with each passing day, built on honesty, trust, and the deep connection they've forged through their shared journey. Though their love isn't the fairy tale Jane once dreamed of, it's real, and it's better than anything she could have imagined. Greg is no Prince Charming, and Jane is no damsel in distress, but together, they create their own version of a happily ever after, one that's messy, imperfect, and full of love. As their relationship blossoms, Jane knows she has to face her family's expectations. Her parents are still pushing for her to settle down with someone like Lucas, someone who fits into their social circle. But Jane is no longer willing to let them dictate her life. She knows what she wants now, and she's ready to fight for a family gathering. Jane finally stands up to her parents. With Greg by her side, she tells them about her love for him and how he makes her happier than anyone else ever could. Her parents are initially shocked and resistant. They've always wanted Jane to marry someone suitable in their eyes. But Jane is firm. "I love Greg," she says, her voice unwavering. "And I'm not going to give up on him just to meet your expectations. This is my life, and I'm choosing love." Greg, for his part, stands proudly beside her, ready to face whatever judgment may come. He's no longer afraid of being with Jane or of the disapproval of her family. He knows that their love is worth fighting for, no matter what. In the end, Jane's parents come to realize that what truly matters is their daughter's happiness. They may not have chosen Greg for her, but they see the love and respect he has for Jane, and slowly, they begin to accept him into the family. Jane and Greg's love story isn't a fairy tale. It's real, raw, and filled with ups and downs. But it's their story, and they wouldn't have it any other way. They've learned that love isn't about perfection or fantasy. It's about being there for each other through the good times and the bad, about building something strong and beautiful out of the imperfect pieces of their lives. As they walk hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges the future may hold, Jane and Greg know that their love will endure. They've overcome their fears, their doubts, and the obstacles that once stood in their way, and now they're ready to build a life together. It's not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where they continue to grow, to love, and to face the world together, side by side. And that, for Jane and Greg, is their true happily ever after. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.